The Boston Red Sox complete downfall and struggles offensively since the Rafael Devers trade have fans wondering, is it time for the Red Sox to fire Craig Breslow?
You are Locked On Red Sox, your daily Boston Red Sox podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to Locked On Red Sox, your daily Boston Red Sox podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Gabby Maljanian, former ESPN social media associate and current host of the Boston Balling podcast as well. And I'm here to bring you the latest in all things Boston Red Sox, Monday through Friday, straight to your favorite podcast feed, and it's all completely free. So make sure you continue to tune in because Locked On is here for you every single day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. Welcome to the show. Happy Monday. I apologize for my voice sounding a little bit hoarse today. I was at a wedding over the weekend, and as you can imagine, I was screaming to all of the music. So definitely trying to get that back a little bit. But obviously, in terms of the Red Sox over the weekend, another very disappointing series for a team that really hasn't been able to fully get it going. And my biggest problem with all of this is that they'll win some games and it'll feel like they're starting to click, and then they just fall back into a slump. For example, they had swept the Yankees and things were on a high. The Rafael Devers trade happened. They went to Seattle and they won the series against the Mariners. And then ever since then, things have just gone downhill, primarily because the offense has not been able to cash in and score. And is all of this a reflection on Craig Breslow? Going to be discussing him a little bit on today's show. Is it time for the Red Sox to fire him? Also giving updates on key players Masataka Yoshida and Jordan Hicks and their timelines for returning to the Boston Red Sox. But it's truly just been yet another roller coaster of a season with a lot more lows than highs so far. And I think the biggest thing that really is upsetting about that is because the Red Sox came into this season with a lot of expectations surrounding they having the hype to be good enough to be a playoff team and whether their talent could get them very far this year because they actually spent some money this offseason for a change. And things were feeling like good vibes all around, but they just have not been able to cash in for multiple reasons. And the guy behind it all, Craig Breslow, who makes the front office decisions, is this time for him to get fired by the Boston Red Sox. Now, you look at the moves that have been made up to this point, and there's no denying that there have been some good moves he has made. Getting Garrett Crochet and the trade that he was able to pull off there. And Crochet has certainly given us everything that we need and more so far. He acquired Carlos Narvaez, who kind of came out of nowhere and has had a really good season behind the plate and in front of it for the Red Sox. And that's been a good Craig Breslow move. He brought in Alex Bregman, who prior to getting injured was the most consistent hitter on the team. And the Red Sox desperately need his bat back in the lineup. So that's another good move that Breslow has made. And then you identify the fact that he acquired Aroldis Chapman, who has been a great closer for Boston. So you look at some of the moves that he's made and they have been good, but then you look at some of the other ones and it's just been really frustrating. A good example of this is Walker Buehler, who continues to struggle on the mound for this Boston Red Sox team. And he's had a couple really solid starts, but then you take a look at his other outings and they just haven't been where they need to be. And the problem that I have with that is that the Red Sox seemingly don't seem as concerned as they should be. And granted, Alex Cora and Walker Buehler himself have both brought up the fact that he has not been pitching to the level at which he needs to be pitching. But Alex Cora was asked as recently as yesterday after he pitched if they were going to take him out of the rotation or consider moving him. And Alex Cora immediately said, not yet. What do you mean not yet? We're already more than halfway through the season and the trade deadline is coming up. And the Red Sox need to start thinking about what is best for this baseball team. And that's the biggest problem that I've had so far with Craig Breslow, is that he was really quick and adamant to say a couple weeks ago after the Rafael Devers trade that the Red Sox are buyers at the trade deadline. Okay. Doesn't buying mean that your team is putting yourself in a position to where you can be contenders? Because right now, this Red Sox team is not playing like a contending team. And that's something that I would say is key to pick up on here, is the Red Sox are not playing baseball like a contender. And Craig Breslow used the argument that nobody's running away with the AL East. We are still very much in the wild card mix. Okay, but if you want to go all in and be buyers, you have to feel confident that your club can make a deep playoff run. And I certainly don't feel confident that this team can make a deep playoff run as of right now, with the way that this offense has been playing as of late and the way that the starting rotation has not been able to fully click in the way that we were hoping that they would. And I'm looking at this team right now and saying they should add pieces, but they can add pieces that are more suited to help them now and in the future, as opposed to just buying rental pieces and trading away your whole future, because the Red Sox certainly do have a great future. And that's something that Craig Breslow was brought in to do, was maintain that future and build a sustainable core that can win for years to come. You look at the Houston Astros, and for how many consecutive years they just continued to get to the ALCS. It's because they had built an empire of a team, and it took a lot of bad baseball for years prior to that. And I think the Red Sox envision a similar thing, that they want to build a team that can be a consistent winner down the road. Then okay, don't tell us we are going all in on 2025 and we are going to be buyers at the trade deadline. And I worry that Craig Breslow massively overlooks a lot of the issues with this team and kind of overhypes a little bit of what's going on. The biggest problem that I have right now when it comes to Breslow is the idea of him waiting too long to add pieces. If he is confident in this team's ability to make a run, he needs to add pieces now and not wait until the trade deadline, because the last thing you want is for him to wait until the trade deadline and the Red Sox continue to struggle, and then because of that, they are out of contention. And obviously, you have key players coming back like Masataka Yoshida, who I'm going to be talking about in a little bit. And obviously, Alex Bregman eventually will be coming back too. So you have that to look forward to. But the biggest issue is that the timeline for Alex Bregman still is questionable. There hasn't been a declared return date for him. He's making good progress, but who really knows there? So you can't bank on waiting until your guys come back to turn things around. The Red Sox, as we knew, have a big hole offensively without Rafael Devers. We knew that by trading him in the short term, their offense would be hurting. And now it is. And they just haven't been able to score a lot of runs. They went off and scored 15 runs in the second game of a 3-game series against the Blue Jays over the weekend, but they scored no runs in the first game. Complete shutout, only had 4 hits in that game. And then they lost game 3 of the series 5-3. They did have 8 hits in that game, but it's another example of them failing to cash in with runners in scoring position. They left 7 on base and they went just 3 for 11 with runners in scoring position in Sunday's loss. And that's been the biggest issue, is they don't really have that big bat in the lineup right now that can scare opposing pitchers. I don't think anybody that pitches looks at this Red Sox lineup right now and says, wow, I'm so scared to pitch to that person. And that's a problem. And that guy could be Alex Bregman. But again, when is he actually coming back? And the more time that you waste, the more out of contention you are going to be. So as far as, is it time to fire Craig Breslow? I think we have to wait and see how things go over the next few weeks. If he waits until the trade deadline and then still decides, oh, I'm going to buy, but the team is far back at that point, that's a complete oversight, and he's clearly not the man for the job. And I'm starting to lean more right now towards, yes, fire him. If the trade deadline doesn't hit on all cylinders for the Red Sox, Craig Breslow needs to be fired. And in order to recover what fans feel about him right now, he needs to start making moves now if he's serious about this team being buyers. And the Red Sox are notorious for waiting until the trade deadline to make their moves. And obviously that can be a little bit harder sometimes than you think, because teams want to wait until the deadline to execute deals for players. Because if Craig Breslow approaches a team now, the other team knows that they are desperate to get better now. So they might be less likely to offer a big package for a player, knowing the Red Sox are willing to settle for a little bit less because they need a player to come here. So therefore, what the opposing team would ask for would be probably more from the Red Sox in return if they were giving away a player that the Red Sox need to add now. For example, a big power bat that's a first baseman. If a team wants to work out a deal with the Red Sox, they would probably say, okay, you're really desperate, so we're going to leverage that. So there is a disadvantage to trying to work out a deal now, but the Red Sox have left themselves in a hole to where they need to start making moves now, because the biggest criticism with Craig Breslow that I have right now is his inability to step away from the computer analytics and look at what's actually going on the field and say, okay, we need to make some moves. We have to make changes to this Red Sox team. What are those changes going to be? So if he waits longer, there's going to be an apparent, obvious statement that says Craig Breslow should be fired. Is he the man to build a sustainable future for the Boston Red Sox? This trade deadline in particular is going to tell us that he needs to be proactive right now and start making moves if he is in fact serious about this Red Sox team being a contender, because you know what? It's painful watching this team continue to struggle and not seeing any desire by the front office to make moves to change that right now. And hopefully he's starting to identify what moves need to be done. But it's frustrating because a few weeks ago, when the Rafael Devers trade happened, they should have already had a plan in place for how they are going to fill that hole offensively and not just let weeks pass without adding somebody else. So add players now. And if you decide your team is not competitive enough, then say we are going to sell and start thinking about those packages. But Breslow has to hit on this trade deadline or he 100% needs to go, because his return on trades last year at the trade deadline were not great. So make sure you nail this trade deadline or he needs to be out the door. Coming up, though, I'm going to be talking about Masataka Yoshida. Is he going to save the day for this Boston Red Sox team? We can hope. If you love sports betting, or even if you haven't really gotten into it that much, FanDuel is the place for you to start to get in on the action, because all of these summer sports are in full swing. Whether you love baseball under the lights, golf on the green, or high stakes soccer action, you can bet on all of it on FanDuel, and it's the best way to make every game even more exciting. My husband's been using FanDuel for a long time now, and he makes bets every single day on whatever sports are going on that day, and he's won a lot of money over the years. So that can 100% be you too. New to FanDuel, new customers can bet just $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. Open the FanDuel app today or visit FanDuel.com to get started. You will not be disappointed in FanDuel, and you can win lots of money. So the Boston Red Sox, whenever I think about them right now, I just get so incredibly frustrated, because I feel like this season had so much more potential than how they're playing. And you thought about the fact that they got a true ace at the top of the pitching rotation in Garrett Crochet. And that was great. And he has been fantastic. And I applaud Craig Breslow for acquiring him. But the thing is, other than that, you've just had a questionable starting rotation since then. And the Red Sox took flyers on people, Walker Buehler, who I mentioned earlier, being a great example of somebody that they took a flyer on. But the thing is, he just has not lived up to what the Red Sox needed him to be. I think they saw him in the postseason last year, and they were hoping he would be that same version this year. And that's just not the version of him that we're seeing. And every start that he makes, he acknowledges that he needs to be better. But what are you going to do to be better? What are the Red Sox going to do to help him to improve and be better? And another big thing that the Red Sox are doing that I've noticed is if a pitcher struggles, they'll put them on an IL stint and say they are not healthy, and then they'll come back and hope they perform better. For example, they've done it with Zach Kelly recently. They placed him on the IL. They've done it with Luis Guerrero, who recently has struggled. They're just placing them on the IL as opposed to trying to help them figure things out in AAA. And with Guerrero, it's a little bit different because he was in AAA and then they called him up due to injuries. But instead of sending him back down again, they're like, all right, let's place him on the IL and see if this fixes everything. So I have a problem with that. And I have a problem with the fact that the Red Sox are standing stagnant when this team is clearly struggling. And if Craig Breslow really was serious about improving this team, he would have already started to do that by now. But he's sitting here saying, we want to be buyers at the trade deadline, but what indication is this team giving you that you can feel confident in them being buyers? They need another big bat in the lineup. Could that bat meet Masataka Yoshida? Possibly. It has been announced by the Red Sox that Yoshida is going to be making his first rehab assignment outing tomorrow with the Worcester Red Sox. And they are hoping to get him back up with the big league club sooner rather than later. He has been dealing with the fallout of off-season shoulder surgery and a roster crunch. So he is ready to go. He feels like it'll just be a brief minor league rehab stint and that he could be ready to go before the All-Star break. That's Yoshida and his team's hope, and that's the hope of the Boston Red Sox. He said it's been a little bit longer than I expected. My goal was to be ready by opening day when I got the surgery, but it's been a long process. But overall, I think I'm in good shape and ready to go. I haven't really felt the difference yet in the shoulder, but just being able to put up the swing pain-free, I think that it will make a difference. He said he's tried to stay sharp by hitting off a machine that simulates big league pitchers, but that live at-bats will provide a different test for him, so he's trying to see how that goes. But he avoided putting a timetable on his return. He said it was realistic to think that he could be back in the lineup before the All-Star break. And if that's the case, that would be huge for a Boston Red Sox team that has been struggling offensively. We can hope that he would give the team a boost. The 31-year-old did slash a .280 percentage last year with a .349 on base percentage and .415 slugging with 10 homers and 56 RBIs in 108 games. The year before that, he had a batting average of .289 with a .338 on base percentage and .445 slugging with 15 homers and 72 RBIs as a rookie. So essentially last year, .280 batting average, the year before .289 batting average. So slightly worse last season than the year before in that regard, but he was on base more last year. So either way, there are offensive attributes that are valuable that Yoshida can bring to the table. One thing I will say when it comes to Yoshida is he is a ground ball merchant, and he struggles with a lot of the off-speed pitches. We see him crush fastballs, and then he started to struggle because opposing pitchers were starting to figure him out because he was mashing the fastballs, but he wasn't really able to hit the off-speed pitches as effectively. So that's something, again, that I'm looking for going into this season with him is how does he adapt to the off-speed pitches? Is he able to adjust his swing or his stance to be able to find more success with those? But we know that he can help this offense out. And when you think about where the Red Sox are at right now and the guys in this offense who have made a difference, it really has been guys like even Cedar Rafaela, who I would argue makes a difference out of the 9-hole because he has really grown from last year in terms of his offensive ability. And Carlos Narvaez also has been another big one that has been consistently hitting pretty well. But you can't really pinpoint anybody in this lineup besides them who have been hitting consistently really well. You would have been able to say Rafael Devers prior to the trade, but you look at guys like Trevor Story, Wilyer Abreu, they've been inconsistent this season. Wilyer Abreu did have a big game over the weekend for sure, but you look at a guy like Trevor Story, and he's been pretty disappointing. And then you look at Roman Anthony, who's still figuring it out in the big leagues. Same with Marcelo Meyer, who has hit overall pretty well, but still figuring it out. You can't identify that one player who consistently can hit well on offense. So between the return of Masataka Yoshida and the eventual return of Alex Bregman, hopefully you get two players in the mix added that can provide you that type of value offensively. So I really hope that Masataka Yoshida doesn't see any setbacks in his recovery because you never really know. He is going to see how things goes when he faces live pitching. He has played 1,001 plate appearances with the Red Sox, averaging a .285 average, .343 on base percentage, and .433 slugging with 25 homers. His OPS against right-handed pitchers is .810, while against left-handers, it's .669 over 252 plate appearances. So obviously struggles significantly more against lefties. He has been limited to a DH role due to shoulder problems and obviously the fact that his defense hasn't been great. So the Red Sox have kept him primarily in that DH spot, which I presume is going to be his role when he comes back, because now that they did trade Devers, there's more of a spot for Yoshida as the full-time DH, because when Devers was still here and the outfield was really crowded, there was a question about where Yoshida was going to slot in. So now with Devers not here anymore, he likely is going to go back to being the full-time DH when he does come back. And his return obviously could be really apparent and game-changing for this Boston Red Sox team. If he performs well during his rehab assignment, he could rejoin the lineup before the All-Star break to impact the offense significantly. His performance will determine his usage and role moving forward as the team figures out what they're going to do for the second half of the season, because most likely they won't want him to play in the outfield a lot because of the fact that his defense struggles, but they might every once in a while use him there if need be. But now that Roman Anthony is up in the big leagues, I'm not seeing that being a likely possibility. But his return is absolutely crucial for the Red Sox's offensive strategy right now, because even small contributions from him would enhance team performance overall, easing concerns about his large contract and solidifying his position on the roster. So my point really is that even if he doesn't go out there and drastically be the best hitter on the team, he still is going to help with offensive productivity. And it just really annoys me that we likely won't see the Red Sox make any more moves to the offense, because I think they see Bregman and Yoshida coming back as acquisitions alone to be able to add back into this offense. So in their minds, they're saying we don't really need to add another big bat to the lineup right now because we have Yoshida coming back, and then later on we have Bregman coming back. So between those two guys, they are going to make our offense better upon their return. And the Red Sox front office has had this mindset a lot when it comes to making moves or lack thereof, is that they bank on their injured players to come back and just drastically help the team win a lot more games. And that's why I said at the top of the show that this is a big trade deadline for Craig Breslow. If he doesn't absolutely nail this trade deadline, the Red Sox need to move on from him, because you can't keep a guy around who doesn't feel capable of making the right moves to improve this baseball team. So yes, is Yoshida coming back going to improve this Red Sox team? 100%. Obviously, we hope for sure that it does. But is it going to drastically improve the team enough to where they can justify not making another move offensively? No. So yes, we can be excited about Yoshida's return, but the Red Sox as a team also have to proactively be thinking about what else they need to do to add to this team, regardless of the fact that they have guys coming back. So hopefully the front office picks up on that. Hopefully they can realize, okay, we need to add more players in order to make this team better in the second half. So is Jordan Hicks going to be a player that helps with that boost? Next, I'm going to be talking all about the newest Red Sox pitcher. Just a reminder that Locked On Red Sox is available on YouTube or any other podcast platform Monday through Friday. Make sure you subscribe and continue to tune in wherever you get your podcasts, because I am here every day, regardless of how frustrating this team becomes, to talk to you about all things related to the Red Sox. And while I appreciate you making Locked On Red Sox your first listen of every day, you can also have yourself a second listen by tuning in to Locked On MLB Game Night, which goes over every game every night all season long. So you don't have to continue to check ESPN for scores, because they will talk to you about the biggest things that have gone on that night around Major League Baseball. So if you're interested in tuning into that show as well, you can find that on YouTube or any other podcast platform right after you tune into Locked On Red Sox. So this Red Sox team is at a place where they dug themselves a hole, and they really have a small margin for error as the rest of the season progresses. And going into this season, I was really excited about this Red Sox team, but knew there were holes in the roster and knew that a lot of things had to go completely right in order for them to succeed. And they just have not had things go right overall. And that could be pinpointed to a lot of people. The coaching, which I've talked about a lot on the show, is a big problem. I think the Red Sox need some new faces on the coaching staff. Craig Breslow, whether it's on him, obviously it's also on the players who need to perform. But the more that they struggle, the more they're allowing it to happen and not make any changes. And that's what's been frustrating for me to experience this season, is that Craig Breslow will be all talk about, we want to be buyers and all of that. But this team has the same problems over and over again, and they just continue to recycle pitchers. So, for example, if a pitcher is struggling in the majors, they'll call another pitcher up from AAA who already has struggled in the majors this season. So it just is a big circle and just a brutal impact 24/7. But they're hoping to turn the tide. And one player they got back in the Rafael Devers trade was Jordan Hicks, who is slated to make his Red Sox debut in this series against the Reds that the Red Sox have over the next few days. So he is a player who the Red Sox see pitching multi-inning relief in that type of role. So he is ready to go out there and wants to contribute. The Red Sox had targeted him as a free agent before the 2024 season and finally got him, obviously paid an insane price to get him. He's been on the injured list since June 2nd with toe inflammation and recently completed a rehab stint with AAA Worcester. During that rehab start, he surrendered 2 runs on 4 hits with 2 strikeouts and 2 walks in 1.2 innings. So his big league stats from the first part of his season with the Giants also don't jump off the page. So some concerns with him going into his time with the Red Sox. He's posted a 6.47 ERA with 43 strikeouts and 20 walks over 48.2 innings. San Francisco actually used him both as a starter and a reliever. 9 of his 13 appearances this year have been starts, but the Red Sox have said that they plan to use him only in relief as a high leverage option out of the pen. He also has some experience as a closer. And there's a lot of pressure on a guy like that to come in and perform, because with Justin Slayton being hurt and the Red Sox not having one of their high leverage arms, that is why they want to make him a high leverage guy, because they feel like they need more people to pitch in that role. And because of the fact that they do have a couple high leverage guys right now, specifically Aroldis Chapman. You could argue that Garrett Whitlock is a high leverage guy, but he has had some struggles overall this season too. Justin Slayton was somebody who was super reliable in those high leverage situations. Now he is hurt. So now the Red Sox need somebody else to step up, and they are really hoping that Jordan Hicks can be a guy who does step up. The best season of his career came in 2023 when he logged a 3.29 ERA with 81 strikeouts over 65.2 innings between the Cardinals and the Blue Jays. He did have a slider in his arsenal that year, which the Red Sox organization helped him reintroduce before his impending activation. So they're hoping that he can utilize that pitch in his arsenal moving forward. He also boasts a sinker, splitter, and four-seamer with which he reached 100 miles per hour on the radar gun during that rehab assignment in Worcester. So he does have a good arsenal with a variety of pitches. The Red Sox are just hoping that he can execute them in the right situations and throw them all really effectively. His activation comes at a critical time for the Red Sox because, like I just mentioned before, fellow reliever Zach Kelly was pulled from the Red Sox June 29th game against the Blue Jays with oblique issues and is scheduled for an MRI to diagnose the extent of the injury. So his expected IL stint makes for an easy roster move to get Jordan Hicks into action. Definitely unfortunate with Zach Kelly, but the Red Sox seem to continue to have pitching injuries, and it makes you really question the training staff. That's obviously a conversation for another day, but now Jordan Hicks is here, and he will be the first to look at the Red Sox returns for Devers in the big leagues. Like, he's going to be the first player from that trade that we are going to get a sense of how he looks in the majors to see how the Red Sox maybe made out in that trade. Hopefully that revamped arsenal and status as a full-time reliever can help him get back on track, and hopefully it works out, because this would be seriously disappointing if it backfires on the Red Sox. And in Hicks's defense, obviously switching from starting to relieving is difficult, and the Red Sox are trying to do that with Garrett Whitlock at one point where they would make him a starter, but then make him a reliever or vice versa. And I think it completely threw off his game. So that could be part of why Jordan Hicks's numbers on paper are not as strong as you would hope that they would be. The Red Sox picked a lane for him, which I really like. He is going to stick to being a high leverage reliever. And he's somebody that the Red Sox are hoping to really get a lot out of. And obviously they've been interested in him for a while. So they must see something in him that they can work with. And I'm hoping that that translates and it works out. And I feel badly for him because he's going in here saying, yeah, I'm representing the Rafael Devers trade. Imagine being associated with a trade like that and a player like that. And for those of you who hadn't tuned in, I did speak with another pitcher that the Red Sox got in that trade in Kyle Harrison. He is in Worcester with the Woo Sox now. He's so excited to contribute in any way that he can. And I know Jordan Hicks has that same attitude of, I'm here in Boston now. The trade is behind me. I'm ready to contribute the best way that I can. So the Red Sox are really hoping that they hit on Jordan Hicks, but we are going to get a first look at him here in these next few days. I'm definitely excited to see what he brings to the table. And the Red Sox have no choice but to have him perform, because at this point, the have no choice is a motto for the rest of the season. Have to find ways to win games, play their version of baseball. And Craig Breslow, hello, wake up. If you want to buy, start buying. Don't wait until the trade deadline to do that. So I know I say this at the end of every show, but we really just need to continue to try to keep the faith, as difficult and seemingly impossible as that is right now. Go Red Sox, and I'll catch you on the flip side.